Good morning. This recording is for Algebra 1, Chapter 11, Lesson 5, and when I was recording this, this was the very last video I ever have to make for Algebra 1. Granted, we're changing systems next year, so probably not. Anyway, let's talk about solving rational equations. A rational equation contains one or more rational expressions, and just remember, rational expression is basically a fraction or fractional looking thing that has variables in it and variables and exponents occasionally. So to solve a rational equation, solve rational equations, you can multiply by the LCD to eliminate the rational expressions. And remember to check your solutions. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first problem, which is 1 over 3 plus 1 over 3x equals 1/6. The first thing we're going to do is find the LCD. In this case, the LCD is 6x. And then I'm going to multiply the LCD times everything in my equation. So it's going to be 6x times 1/3, 6x times 1 over 3x, and 6x times 1/6. Then I'm going to simplify. That leaves me with 2x plus 2 equals x. So much easier to do than the original equation, don't you agree? So I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to minus 2x on both sides to get 2 equals negative 1x. Divide by negative 1, divide by 1, x equals negative 2. And I'm not going to check, oh, actually I do think I checked this one. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, so let's follow the exact same steps and do a different one. We're going to find the LCD for 4 over c, 3 over 2c, and 1/5. Well, that would be 10c is the LCD. So I'm going to multiply everything by the LCD. So 10c times 4 over c equals 10c times 3 over 2c, and 10c times 1/5. Simplify and solve. Minus 15 on both sides. I'm going to get c equals 25 over negative 2, or negative 25 over 2. So again, notice how the steps were exactly the same for both those problems. Find the LCD, multiply by the LCD, simplify, and solve. Pretty easy, right? Good. All right. So to solve some rational equations, you may need to factor a quadratic. So definitely pay attention to that. Now, I'm still following the same steps. Find the LCD, multiply by the LCD, simplify, and solve. The only thing is that to simplify and solve means I'm going to have to factor. The nice thing is that a lot of these are going to be zero product property, though I guess you could cheat and use the quadratic. Okay? Alrighty, but definitely make sure you check your quadratic because there will be some extraneous solutions in some of these problems, so make sure you check for that. All right, so I'm going to multiply by my LCD, which is m squared. Multiply by LCD. So everything gets multiplied by m squared. Distribute, simplify. And then basically I have a quadratic here. I have an exponent to the second power, which means I'm going to have to factor. Now I'm going to factor and then use zero product property. So set equal to 0 so that I can factor. And there we go. And really tiny, really tiny. I actually made it bigger and shrunk it down. And then I'm going to end up with my factored equation. And then set both of my parentheses equal to 0. And I'm going to end up with m equaling 1/2 and m equaling 2. And I make sure you check your solution. So I'm going to plug in 1/2 in and see that it works. I'm going to plug in 2 and see that it also works. So both of them are a solution. All right, now following those exact same steps, I'm going to do a different problem. T minus 2 equals 8 minus 2t over t minus 1. So I'm going to multiply both sides by t minus 1 because that's my LCD, basically whatever the fraction was, and that cancels out. And this is basically the simplify part. I'm going to FOIL. Now I didn't quite simplify the FOIL, mainly because I knew that I'm going to add that 2t on both sides, and it's going to cancel out the 2t on the other side. Then I'm going to end up with t squared minus 1t plus 2 equals 8. I need to set equal to 0. Then I need a factor. And then I'm going to do the zero product property and find out that t equals 3 and negative 2. And if you check your answers, you're going to find out that both of them actually work, which is pretty cool. And then the other one's up there. Pretty cool, yo. All right, let's move on. So, too big. Okay, so let's see here. Let's actually get to the problem first. Work rate problems, and I can guarantee you, you're going to see these problems all over, up and down, any standardized test you take. All right, if you're taking a test for getting into a private high school, if you're taking it as an entrance exam into the high school you've already been accepted to and are going to figure out which math you're going to be in, you're going to have to do a problem like this. These problems never go away. They expect you to know how to do them all the time. So pay attention to how we solve them. Max can wash a car in 60 minutes. His older sister Kayla can do the same job in 45 minutes. How long will the car wash take if they work together? That is the big thing, if they work together. Well, most brothers and sisters don't work well together, but maybe this time they do well. So we're going to let n be the number of minutes it takes both working together. All right? So if Max can do the job in 60 minutes, which means he's going to do 1/60th of the work, whereas his sister can do the same amount of work in 45 minutes, which means she's going to do 1/45th of the job. So together they're going to do 1/n of the job. So we're going to find the LCD, multiply by the LCD, simplify, and solve. Same steps as before. So the LCD is 180n, and so I'm going to multiply everything by 180n, and I'm going to simplify and get 3n plus 4n equals 80, and then I'm going to solve. So it's basically going to take them together 25 and 5/7 minutes. So basically 26 minutes if you're going to round up, because 5/7 is pretty close, and really we're not going to be like, all right, now wash that car with a timer, right? Right. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to how we solve this. Think about who's doing a fraction of what job, and then solve it the way we've done these other problems, where you're going to find the LCD, multiply, simplify, and solve. Alrighty, notice how they're the exact same steps. I haven't copied and pasted the steps from the previous page. That's how much you need these steps. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. We're going to solve using cross product. If you haven't been having flashbacks to pre-algebra, I don't know what would in this chapter. You've talked about multiplying fractions, the same way you multiplied fractions at the beginning of pre-algebra, and even in 6th grade math. So there you go. And now we're just doing cross product the same way we did before. And actually this problem is like so entirely simple, I would have expected a pre-algebra student to kind of know how to do this. So yeah, so let's just refresh on how to use cross product. If you have two fractions or ratios that are equal to each other, the cross product, the denominator of one times the numerator of the other, equals the denominator of the other times the denominator of whatever. Got it? Or numerator. All right, let's just show. So if I multiply those two things together, I'm going to be able to get two sets, an equation that is set equal to each other, so that if I solve it, I get an answer, right? Having flashbacks? Good, I'm glad. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with something slightly harder. It's not even that much harder. It's almost the exact same problem, just with different numbers. The only thing is we're going to end up with a quadratic, which means we're going to have to factor. All right, so n times n plus 1 is n squared plus n equals 20. Set equal to 0. We're going to factor. And I did the math without showing it. I hope you guys know what I was doing. We're going to do zero product property, set each one equal to 0, and figure out that n equals -5 or n equals 4. Both are possible, and if you go in and check your solution, you're going to find out that both of them work. There we go. All right, so again, I'm doing this fast, but if you're not getting what I'm doing, you should have slowed down and take a look at it one more time. Okay? All right, now let's do this with some extraneous solutions. So you definitely keep your eyeballs peeled for this. You definitely need to be looking at this and paying attention to it, because there's several situations that can happen that give you no solution, or one of them doesn't even work. One of the big ones is denominator is undefined. If you get to that point, you're going to have a problem. You can't have an undefined denominator according to our current textbook. And I'm going to show you an example of a tricky one in just a minute. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. Now the first one's more obvious, though it's more obvious if you just kind of look at it, because some of you guys will be in just, you know, like driving mode, and you're going to cruise right by this one and not realize what happened. So I'm going to do cross product. So it's 2 times c squared plus 1 and 2 times c squared. Well, that means I have 2c squared plus 2 equals 2c squared. that doesn't equal each other. If it really did, I would have like a phantom plus 2 over here. But I don't. It's not there. So this is actually no solution right away. There's nothing that makes this true. You can beat this one to death with all of those tools that you know in your math toolbox and still get no solution because there's no number that you can replace C with and then add 2 to it and then get a solution that's equal on both sides. There's no way. There's no way. So this is automatically no solution because it doesn't equal. It's a false statement. All right, so pay attention to that. Those are the quick and dirty ones where you're like, whoa, 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 does not equal. What's going on here? Right? Okay, so make sure you keep your eye open for that. Next one, w to the second over w minus 1 equals 1 over w minus 1. So cross product. And we get w squared times w minus 1 equals 1 times w minus 1. I'm going to distribute. I'm going to set equal to 0 so that I can factor. And I'm going to factor by grouping. All right, it's probably been a while since you've done that. So there we go. Factor by grouping. And we're going to factor completely because that actually factors out again. All right, so then there's 2 of them. We're going to do 0 product property, but we're technically doing it 3 times. The only thing is that one of them is exactly the same. So even though I had to factor this completely to get here, this one right here is the same as that one. So really you only have to do it twice, only because it happens to be a repeat. So pay attention to that. So we end up getting w equals -1 or +1. So what we're going to go ahead and do is check them both. And we're going to check our solutions, and we're going to end up finding out that -1 works, but that -1 gives me a undefined situation. Just because 1 over 0 equals 1 over 0 does not mean that it's actually a solution because it's undefined. So +1 does not work for our current textbook. So don't be going arguing with me later, all right? I know one of you will. All right, see you later. Bye.